A billionaire was dying in a public park and no one cared. Joggers ran by, dogs barked, phones buzzed, he clutched his chest and gasped, invisible in a suit worth more than some apartments. Then a 10-year-old with a sticky band-aid on his knee and a heart bigger than this whole city ran over and changed everything. It was a crisp afternoon at the city park when Mr. Marcus Langston, a high-powered mogul with more zeros in his bank account than Twitter trolls on a Monday, came to unwind after sealing a mega deal. The chaos of the boardroom melted into the breeze until his chest clenched. Hard, his asthma, he'd forgotten his inhaler, classic billionaire oversight. Struggling to breathe, he staggered toward a bench and collapsed onto it like a deflating beach ball in a power suit. His hands trembled, his lungs rebelled. He gasped for air, but each breath was a war. Around him, life continued. Joggers jogged, lovers loved, birds got fat on breadcrumbs. No one noticed the man quietly suffocating in designer loafers. Enter Tommy, a 10-year-old kid, whose soccer, ball, and fate rolled off the path just far enough to spot a dying man no one else saw. 1 second he was chasing a goal, the next he was sprinting toward a stranger with urgency in his feet and a question in his heart. "Sir, are you okay?" he asked, eyes wide, breath caught in concern. Mr. Marcus opened his mouth. No sound, just a dry gasp and eyes screaming louder than his lungs could. Tommy didn't hesitate. No hesitation, no fear, just pure reflex. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his own inhaler like it was Excalibur. "Use mine," he said, and placed it gently into Marcus's trembling hand. With shaky fingers, the man pressed it to his lips, inhaled deep, held it, exhaled, again. Slowly, air returned, like rebooting a crashed system. His vision cleared. The spinning world steadied. He looked at the boy in disbelief, still catching his breath. "You just saved me," Marcus whispered, raspy but awestruck. Tommy grinned. "My mom says we should help when we can." Moments later, a woman in a slightly greasy diner uniform power walked down the path like she was about to scold someone or tip really badly. That was Sarah, Tommy's mom. She'd just clocked out and was coming to walk him home when she spotted her son with a stranger. Cue the mum instinct. "Tommy, everything okay?" she called, already scanning the man on the bench with the protective precision of a mother who's had to work double shifts and dodge weirdos. Tommy nodded. He couldn't breathe. I gave him mine. Mr. Marcus, still pale but standing straighter now, tucked the inhaler into his coat pocket like it was sacred. "Your son helped me when no one else did. He has a heart of gold." Sarah looked at her boy, then back at the stranger, offering a polite but cautious smile that said, "Please don't be weird." Marcus reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card that shimmered like it had its own PR team. "I'm Marcus Langston," he said. "I'd really like to stay in touch. You've both given me more than you realize." Sarah hesitated, but took the card. "Thank you," she said, unsure what else to offer a man who probably had a yacht for every weekday. Marcus nodded, eyes still locked on Tommy, with a strange kind of wonder. Then he turned and walked away toward his car and the hospital, just to be safe. But his mind? Stuck on a kid who'd handed him oxygen and hope. That night, Tommy relived the entire saga over toast and leftovers like it was a blockbuster premiere. Arms flying, voice animated. Sarah listened with a smile, her thumb brushing over the business card still on the table. Marcus Holdings. The name tickled something in her memory headlines, whispers at the diner, the rich guy they say never comes out of his office tower. Then the phone rang. Sarah answered it with mom-level caution. "Hello? Good evening. This is Marcus Langston. I hope I'm not calling too late." His voice, no longer wheezing, was warm and commanding, but softer now. She glanced at Tommy, who leaned forward, eavesdropping like a little detective. "No, it's all right," she replied. "I just wanted to thank your son again. I can't stop thinking about it. I'm glad he could help," she said. "That's just who he is." "I was hoping," Marcus continued, "that you both might come to my home tomorrow. I'd like to speak with you properly." Sarah blinked. A formal request from a billionaire? It sounded like something out of a Hallmark movie, but its tone was real. "All right, we'll come." The next morning arrived cloaked, in that quiet, strange calm that whispers, "Something big is coming." Sunlight trickled through old blinds in their small apartment. Sarah stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her one good blouse, hands trembling not from fear, but from the surreal gravity of it all. In the doorway stood Tommy, hair neatly slicked, jacket sleeves tugged nervously. "Do I look okay, Mom?" Sarah turned and smiled. "You look perfect." He grinned, pure and honest. The kind of smile that doesn't care about bank accounts or business cards, just kindness. The memory of yesterday still hung in the air, a park, a stranger, an act of instinctive compassion, only now that stranger had a name, and today they were going to his home. A sleek black car rolled up outside their building, as if summoned by movie magic. Tommy's eyes went wide. He'd seen this kind of car in superhero movies. The driver tipped his hat and opened the door like they were royalty. Sarah clutched Tommy's hand tighter. Leather seats, the faint smell of cedar and cologne, silence thick enough to touch. This wasn't her world. But she climbed in anyway, heart pounding like it wanted to back out. As the city passed, its grey buildings gave way to green lawns and gated dreams. Then came the gates, black, iron, ornate, guarding a mansion that could moonlight as a museum. The car turned up the driveway like it knew the way. Fountains danced, roses posed, statues judged them silently. The house itself gleamed like ambition carved from marble and sunlight. The car stopped. The front door opened. And there he was, Mr. Marcus Langston, not the gasping stranger from the park, not the man in news headlines, but a smiling host in a soft sweater and tailored trousers, standing tall, eyes bright. "Welcome," he said, stepping forward. Tommy waved shyly. Sarah nodded, caught between awe and caution. "Come in," Marcus said, holding the door wide. Inside that mansion, reality blinked. A chandelier sparkled like a galaxy overhead, a staircase swirled upward like it belonged in a fairy tale, and marble floors gleamed so brightly Sarah could see the reflection of her own disbelief. But what truly stunned her? The house didn't feel cold, it felt kind. Despite the towering ceilings and paintings older than her grandma's secret pie recipe, there was something soft about the place, a stillness that wrapped around them like a warm blanket instead of a velvet rope. Marcus led them into a sitting room so elegant it could have hosted royalty, but it was the sunlight pouring through the giant windows and the scent of fresh flowers that made Sarah's shoulders finally drop. "Please, sit," Marcus said, motioning toward the cream-colored couch that looked like it cost more than their rent. Sarah sat like the furniture might judge her. Tommy, on the other hand, sank into the cushions like a marshmallow melting into cocoa, eyes darting around with awe. "I wanted you both here," Marcus began, his voice calm and rich, "because yesterday, it wasn't just a health scare, it was a wake-up call." Sarah leaned in, brow raised slightly. "I've spent most of my life boxed into meetings, chasing deals, winning at things most people don't even understand. Contracts, awards, influencing of it compared to the moment a little boy with nothing to gain ran toward a stranger and gave him his last breath of air." He turned to Tommy, eyes glinting with emotion. "You didn't stop to ask who I was. You didn't hesitate. You just helped. That kind of heart? It's rare. It's powerful." Tommy blushed, looking at his shoes like they might help him disappear. Marcus smiled, then turned to Sarah. "I couldn't sleep last night. I kept thinking I don't want this to end with just a thank you. I want to give something back." Sarah sat straighter. Her hands clutched the hem of her blouse like it might anchor her to this planet. Marcus reached for a folder, opened it slowly, and slid it across the table. "This is a transfer of funds," he said. $2 million. It'll be placed in a secure trust under your name. No fine print, no catch, just a gift." Sarah froze. Time stopped. Her mind couldn't compute that number, that gesture. Her lips parted, then closed again, her breath short. 2 million? She echoed like she was trying to confirm reality. Marcus nodded. "And that's not all. I've chosen 3 homes across the city. Each one is paid for, move-in ready, yours to choose, no more rent. No more leaky pipes or heaters that only wheeze." Sarah blinked, almost dazed. "Mr. Langston, we can't. This is too much." "No," Marcus said gently. "It's just enough. Your son gave me more than an inhaler, he gave me clarity. A reminder that people matter more than margins, that small kindnesses can spark revolutions. I want to honor that." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. She reached instinctively for Tommy's hand. Her voice barely made it out. We've never had this kind of help." "That's why you deserve it," Marcus said with quiet conviction. Silence filled the room, but not an awkward kind. It was sacred. Tommy looked up at his mom, eyes big with possibility. "Mum, we could have our own house. You wouldn't have to work so much." Sarah nodded, her tears falling freely now. She turned to Marcus, voice trembling. "Thank you. I don't even have words for what this means." "You already said it," Marcus replied, smiling. "The moment you raised a boy who would hand his inhaler to a stranger." The rest of the morning flowed like a dream painted in warm colors. Marcus gave them a tour of the estate. Tommy darted excitedly into a sprawling library filled with maps, books, and enough stories to fuel a dozen childhoods. He showed them photos of the homes they could pick from, each one with space, sunlight, and dignity built into the walls. As they prepared to leave, Marcus stood by the front door, hands in his pockets. "This isn't a goodbye," he said. "This is just the beginning." Tommy gave him a hug, awkward and sudden but honest. Marcus chuckled and ruffled his hair. Back in the car, Sarah held the folder like a miracle might fly away if she loosened her grip. Tommy leaned against her shoulder, glowing and yawning like a kid at the end of the best field trip ever. The world outside hadn't changed, but they had. Weeks passed. The new house breathed with peace. Wind danced through white curtains, brushing past walls that felt like they had their own heartbeat. Outside, sunlight bathed trimmed lawns and neighbors waved with easy smiles. Inside, Sarah stood in the kitchen, both hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. A hum of a new fridge whispered behind her. It wasn't silent, it was serene. Their old life felt like another dimension now. The cramped apartment, the leaking faucets, the late-night budgeting sessions over dry toasted all belonged to someone else. "Mum!" Tommy's voice echoed down the stairs. He slid into the kitchen, socked feet squeaking. "The movers hung my spaceship poster!" He was beaming. Sarah smiled, setting her tea down. "That's great, sweetheart. Want to show me?" He didn't wait for a yes. He grabbed her hand and tugged her upstairs. His room was soaked in sunlight and joy. A big window overlooked the backyard, where a tire swing swayed gently. Above the bed, the poster, a rocket ship blasting off into the stars. "I put it there," Tommy said proudly, "so it's the first thing I see when I wake up. It reminds me I can go anywhere." Sarah blinked back tears. Just a few weeks, and already their past felt like a bad story someone else had lived. The patched clothes, the broken heat, the long shifts, gone. This was real. They went downstairs again, past unpacked boxes and leaning picture frames, still waiting for their permanent place on the walls. But the house was already a home. The scent of vanilla candles mingled with fresh paint and new beginnings. Sarah drifted into the room that was now her office. For years, she'd scribbled lists on grocery receipts, made notes in the margins of bills. Now, she had a real desk, a real laptop, a plan. She had enrolled in online classes nutrition. One day, she'd open her own wellness cafe. A dream she once buried beneath exhaustion now sat proud, waiting. That afternoon, as golden sunlight stretched across their hardwood floors, the doorbell rang. Tommy raced to the door. A single envelope sat on the welcome mat. No stamp, no return address, just Sarah's name in elegant handwriting. She opened it slowly. Inside, a single sheet of thick, fine paper. A message written in dark, flowing ink. Inside the envelope, her fingers found a note that didn't shout, it whispered, and it went straight to the soul. "Kindness always finds its way back. Stay true to yourself. Mr. Marcus." Beneath that was another sheet thicker, more official. Sarah's eyes skimmed the words, but her heart felt the meaning before her brain could process it. A full-ride scholarship. Tommy's future. Paid in full. Any school, any dream, anywhere in the world. Her hands trembled. She lowered the letter into her lap like it was holy. Tommy watched her, brow furrowed. "What does it say?" She turned to him, tears sliding freely down her cheeks, a smile blooming like spring. "It says your future's already waiting. You just have to go chase it." Tommy grinned. He didn't yet grasp the magnitude, but he understood happiness. And right now, Mom looked happy. That evening, they didn't cook because they had to. They cooked because they could. Together. For joy. They made tomato basil pasta. Tommy accidentally launched a noodle at the backsplash, and Sarah laughed so hard she had to sit down. They set the table like it was a special occasion because it was. Folded napkins. Candles. Sarah even poured herself a glass of wine, something she hadn't done in years. The air buzzed with warmth. "I like it here," Tommy said, spinning spaghetti like a pro. "I don't miss the old place." Sarah reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Me neither." Later, as night whispered against the windows and stars peeked through the curtains, Sarah stood alone, the letter in her hand. Her thoughts drifted to Marcus Langstonot as the billionaire on news tickers, but the breathless man on a park bench. A man who had been transformed not by power, but by kindness. A man who chose to remember not with fanfare, but with legacy. She folded the letter and tucked it gently into a desk drawer next to her course materials. It felt ceremonial, like placing a cornerstone in the foundation of a new life. Days blurred into weeks, and the rhythm of their new world found its beat. Tommy made friends in the neighborhood. Sarah cooked more than she ordered in. Laughter became background music to their lives. Every now and then, a handwritten note arrived, always from Marcus, always short. A quote, a reminder, a whisper of encouragement. He never dropped by, he never overstepped, but his presence remained, like the soft scent of cinnamon in a familiar room. One Saturday, while Sarah struggled with her garden, her plants seemed to fear her, Tommy sprinted out of the house, breathless and glowing, waving a glossy brochure. "Mom, look, it's a summer space camp, real astronauts." Sarah took the brochure, scanned it, and smiled. "Then we're signing you up." And they did, without hesitation, without doing mental math, without guilt. It was the first time Sarah had said yes, without fear dragging behind it. Tommy returned from camp changed. Not completely, not visibly, but deeply. His eyes held new questions, and his voice buzzed with propulsion systems, zero gravity, and starlit dreams. His mind sparked, hungry and bright. And Sarah recognized it. That spark, that fire. She had once had it too. They started dreaming out loud. Sarah would open her cafe one day, small, warm, called The Hearth, a place where food didn't just fill bellies, it healed. Tommy began a journaler's idea vault. Inventions, moonshot concepts, doodles of future tech. Some were brilliant, some hilariously wild. But all of them rooted in belief, because someone had once believed in him first. Some nights, long after Tommy was asleep, Sarah would sit in the quiet, tea in hand, thinking back to the park, how close they'd come to missing all of this. How a child's impulse became a thread that changed their entire narrative. A boy, a breath, a billionaire. A moment that could have gone unnoticed now, stitched into the fabric of their lives. She realized Marcus had given more than money. He gave belief, faith in people without resumes or resumes, in hearts over headlines. Years passed. Tommy grew taller than her. His voice dipped into teenage bass. The house filled with framed photos and echoes of birthday songs and holiday laughter. Sarah's cafe opened small at first, then steady, then beloved. And the letter? Still in that drawer, a totem of where it all began. Because kindness through kindness doesn't evaporate. It roots itself deep, it grows in silence, and it blooms where no one's looking. One night, beneath a blanket of stars, Tommy turned to her and asked, "Do you think someday I'll be able to do something like that for someone else?" She looked at him, backlit by moonlight, his silhouette stretched across the porch, a boy with a heart too big to ever be ordinary. "You already have," she whispered. "But yes, one day you'll do even more." And he would. Because their story didn't end with a mansion or a scholarship or a miracle letter. It began there. Tommy didn't volunteer at the local shelter because it made a good school essay. He did it because something inside him shifted that day in the park and it never shifted back. He hadn't known, as he handed over his inhaler, that he was also handing his family a future, a home, a purpose. But now, with a warm home behind him and his mother's dream cafe thriving, Tommy sought out where kindness could lead others. The shelter was a few blocks away, nestled in a quieter part of town. The sign out front weathered, hopeful read Willow Grove Community Center. Inside, the scent of warm bread, soap, and old wood wrapped around him like a storybook page. Here, people found halfway hope meals, beds, job counseling, a chance. Tommy's first day was quiet. He stacked cans, passed out towels, served trays. Some people met his eyes, some didn't. A few told stories, fragments of pain and longing. A few days later, Sarah joined him, day off apron, swapped for a soup ladle. She brought her famous sweet potato stew, the same one that had won hearts at the cafe. Tommy watched as she floated through the room, speaking to guests like they were old friends. Somehow, her food reached people where words couldn't. "Helping people feels good," Tommy said later, drying trays, a grin curling his lip. Sarah nodded. "Funny, isn't it, how simple it is to start and how impossible it is to stop." They didn't volunteer every day, but they kept showing up enough to make a difference. They didn't just volunteer, they became part of the heartbeat of the shelter. People started greeting them by name. Tommy helped kids whose families were in limbo with math homework and spelling drills. Once a week, he read stories in a quiet corner, tales of courage, space travel, and the power of small choices. On clear nights, he'd wheel out his telescope behind the building, showing wide-eyed children the moon, Saturn's rings, and Jupiter's moons, whispering, "The sky belongs to all of us, no matter where we sleep." Word spread. One afternoon, as Tommy and Sarah unpacked a box of donated clothes, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Tommy didn't notice, he was too focused untangling cords for the shelter's cranky speakers. But Sarah's breath caught. She knew that car. She knew the man before the door even opened. Marcus Langston stepped out, blazer sharp, expression softer than usual. No entourage, no grand entrance, just a man who understood humility. Tommy looked up, then beamed, "Mr. Marcus!" They shook hands firmly, a different kind of bond now between them. Marcus scanned the room, the laughter, the smell of soup, the way Tommy moved like he belonged to the space. "You've got a big heart," Marcus said, his voice hushed. "Back then, I thought you saved my life. Now I see that day in the park wasn't luck. It was your beginning." Tommy smiled, but didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. Later, when the last trays had been cleaned and the room had dimmed, Tommy sat with Marcus on the front bench under the glow of a flickering streetlight. "You ever wonder," Tommy asked, "what would have happened if I hadn't been there that day?" Marcus stared out at the quiet street. "Sometimes, but mostly I think about what you did after that day. That's the part that matters. I guess I was just lucky to be there," Tommy said, eyes distant. "Now I just want to help more people get lucky too." Marcus turned to him, a small, proud smile touching his lips. "That's not luck, Tommy. That's legacy." Time moved the way it always do, slow and fast, in equal measure. The shelter continued to thrive, powered by the community and people like Tommy and Sarah. Sarah's cafe grew into more than a restaurant. On weekends, she hosted free cooking classes for single parents teaching nourishment beyond food. Tommy entered high school with quiet confidence, forged in compassion. He still volunteered, not out of duty, but because it grounded him. He mentored younger kids, taught them, lifted them, helped them find their voice. Sometimes, he'd even bring out that same telescope Marcus had given him 2 birthdays ago, letting other children glimpse their place in the cosmos. By graduation, Tommy had 2 full scholarships earned from Marcus and 1 from sheer merit. Universities courted him not just for his brains, but for his soul. He chose a school with a powerful astrophysics program. It was far, but then again, so were his dreams. Before leaving, Marcus invited him to dinner, just the 2 of them, same grand estate, same table where so much had begun. Over grilled salmon and vegetables, Marcus raised his glass. "You're going to do incredible things, Tommy, but never forget greatness isn't how far you rise. It's how many hands you reach for along the way." Tommy nodded, his voice thin with emotion. "You changed my life." "No," Marcus replied, resting a hand on his shoulder. "You changed mine." College came fast. Tommy immersed himself in study, in labs that stretched into the stars. He built models, ran simulations, slept beside textbooks. But he also started a student group community outreach, STEM days in local schools, tutoring younger students. He never forgot, knowledge was powerful, but sharing it was transformative. Back home, Sarah's cafe had blossomed. On the wall near the register hung a framed note original. "Kindness always finds its way back. Mr. Marcus." It became her cafe's motto. Customers recited it like gospel. Years passed. Tommy returned home not as a child, but as a man, a scientist, a dreamer still. He'd landed a job with a private space agency helping map paths humanity might one day walk among the stars. Then, on a rainy afternoon, walking home from a meeting, he turned a corner and saw someone slumped on a bench. A man, maybe 60, pale, coughing, hands trembling, breath shallow. Without thinking, Tommy stepped forward. "Sir, are you okay?" The man looked up, startled, wheezing. "Asthma? Forgot my inhaler." Tommy reached into his coat, pulled out a spare, something he always carried. "Here," he said, gently placing it in the man's hand. 2 breaths later, the stranger sat upright again. Relief softened his face. "Thank you," he whispered. "You didn't have to." "I know," Tommy replied, smiling, "but I wanted to." He stayed with the man until help arrived. Then, with quiet satisfaction, walked on, shoulders lifted, heart steady. He knew, without question, something had come full circle. Not because of reward, not because of recognition, but because he had been given a beginning and now he could pass one forward. The following week, he visited Marcus. Time had silvered his hair, slowed his step, but his eyes still sparked with fire. "I helped someone," Tommy said, telling him the story. Marcus smiled, eyes crinkling. "Then you've done more than I ever could." They sat in silence on the garden bench, the afternoon wind rustling leaves around them. Tommy tilted his head to the sky, watching clouds drift like slow ships. "You were right," he said softly. "About what?" Marcus asked. "One act of kindness. It really can change a life." Marcus nodded. "It changed mine." And Tommy knew in that moment that this was their legacy. Not a statue, not a headline, but a whisper, a ripple. A chain reaction of kindness passed from hand to hand, breath to breath. Quiet, simple, unstoppable. The kind of story that doesn't fade with time, but echoes forever. If you enjoy this story of Tommy, Sarah, and Mr. Marcus, we'd love for you to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable, heartwarming stories. What part of this story stayed with you the most? Where in the world are you watching from? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this journey from one moment in the park to a legacy that touched lives? Drop your thoughts below. We read every comment. And until next time, stay kind, stay curious, stay human. More powerful stories are on the way.